from the zoo. Look, I'm from the zoo. My team full of animals. I tell them to eat people. Yeah, I'm raising cannibals. You know what I do, no? I would dismantle you. Cause I'm from the zoo too. And I'm an animal. Yeah, I'm from the zoo. My team full of animals. I tell them to eat people. Yeah, I'm raising cannibals. You know what I do? I would dismantle you. Cause I'm from the zoo too. And I'm an animal. I'm from the zoo. Right there. So yeah, I'm an animal.
Hey, we back, y'all. Episode 4 of the Do Say Sip and Chill. Me and my co-host Cynthia Taylor over there. We back again. And Cynthia's gonna introduce everybody tonight.
Yes. So Bim and I are really excited. We have our Do Say Sip and Chill NC Father's Day show. And so one of the things that makes this show special is because with Do Say on the bottle, you'll notice that there's a cross. It's the cross of Lorraine. And that cross actually symbolizes courage, honor, and perseverance. And so all of these men, I've been getting feedback all day long about how lit the lineup is. So everybody's excited to hear from you guys. We have an awesome, phenomenal lineup for you all tonight. So Bim and I are indeed excited. And so we're going to start off today just letting you all introduce yourself. But first we're going to start with Key Raspberry. Key Raspberry, where are you? There you go.
Let's go.
Thank you.
So Key, let everybody know who you are, what is it that you do, and pretty much overall, what is your goal, as a Black man first, as a dad, and then even here in the community. So go ahead, get started. I'm not going to interrupt you.
Sure. Thank you guys for this platform. My name is Key Raspberry. I live in Greensboro. I am a denim designer. I make everything denim. Also, Do Say Sipper, Do Say /influencer. And I try to promote and motivate when it comes, promote Do Say as much as possible. I have a 2-year-old. His name is Chance. And this episode is really special to me because he was in the NICU for about 3 months, and he came home 2 years ago on Father's Day 2 years ago. Exactly today, he came home 2 years ago on Father's Day. So, yeah, so that was pretty dope to me. I'm all about encouraging our youth and making sure, and also encouraging our people as a whole. In today's society, what's going on today, I've been moved. I've actually been rejuvenated because before I was numb to a lot what was going on, but now the younger generation has inspired me to want to go forward and march along with them and create change. So this is one of the platforms to do it and to talk about it. And also it's up to me, others, to actually be the voice of change.
Absolutely. And Bim, I see you and Key go back and forth on the gram and stuff a lot too. So with you also being into fashion and stuff, I guess you guys do have quite a lot in common. And hey, Key, is that what kind of hat is that you got on up there?
Yes, my brother. Yes, he does. He does a lot of, he support me. I support him. I try to, do what I can to help him out. And this platform is, one of the ways I'm gonna help him, distribute his stuff and get his stuff out there to people he couldn't reach. Absolutely. But he's a support, and he's definitely repping I Got Dreams. That's my brand.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Key, so much for being here tonight. If you'll hang on, because we have, like I said, quite a beautiful lineup tonight. And I'm sure that I've heard you guys already connecting. I love the brotherly love. So definitely hang out. We won't be before you long, but we're going to be before y'all strong. So just stay with us, all right? So coming to the stage next, we have, since we're going to be in the fashion arena, let's go back to Durham over at Black Wall Street Barbershop. Y'all know who he is. Go ahead and tell us who you are, sir.
Kelly Hester, how y'all doing? Durham native, Black Wall Street Barbershop, Bull City Laughs. I got a comedy bus business also too. Here lately, mental health. Like me, in the last 2 years, I've been diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder. So like understanding that, you know, going through therapy and stuff like that. Also diagnosed with like PTSD, just understanding what that means. To me, that's important because I see as a barber, you know, a lot of people come to us almost like therapists, and they tell us a lot of the stuff that they go through and a lot of stuff that's on their mind. And I'm even able to like say, you know what, you know, that sounds a little like something might be going on. I'm not a professional, but you know, I have numbers. You know, like in the shop right now, I got a notebook, you know what I'm saying, of where they can go get free services. And it's kind of cool because I'm starting to see like some of these guys like really go like, man, I went and had to talk to a therapist the other day. Yeah, you was right, man. They said they think it's just that and the third, and I'm learning coping skills and stuff. It's like a lot of this stuff sometimes will keep you out of jail, keep you from getting in trouble. Like understanding, I think this is, yeah, we got to learn how to like understand who we are. It's giving me time to like understand who I am and how I work, and that helps me interact with the public. So I would say mental health and entrepreneurship is big. I own a couple businesses, so those things are like big for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Bim actually mentioned something our first show when at the end we were closing out, and I was saying, you know, y'all just support each other, check up on each other, and then Bim was like, yes, y'all check up on your friends, like call your friends. Like, you know, I was on the phone with a great friend of mine on yesterday, had no clue that he himself had been battling, you know, low places and low thoughts. And, you know, we're not trained, or we're not going to show on Instagram us somewhere in the corner feeling low. We're always going to show the shine. And so for him to even be, as a Black man, vulnerable enough to be like, hey, sis, like, you should call me sometimes, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, the same way they prescribe you a pill, you need to prescribe yourself a positive action in opposite direction of what that feeling, and make sure your thoughts, they don't tell you what to do. You're not a wimp. You don't let anything tell you what you're going to do or what you're going to think about. You take control of your thoughts. And me, myself, having had to deal with mental health issues myself, I attempted suicide twice. And there were things that I never thought that I would go through that I went through mentally. And there came a point in my life where I said, you can't go backwards. I mean, the only other direction than life is death, and I refuse that. And so you take control of your thoughts, and you, like you said, you find ways where, you know, we're not, the Bible says to cast your cares on him because he cares for us. We can't carry it all. We just cannot.
No.
Cannot. And so for you to even have resources, Akili, at your barbershop, at Black Wall Street Barbershop, y'all over there off of Fayetteville Street in Durham, y'all check him out. He's been a genuine guy. Everybody that you see up here tonight has been so genuine to me. So definitely support that cause. I really appreciate that, Akili. That's really, really strong, especially in the Black men community right now, Father's Day. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir. That's big, man. We appreciate you down in that book. It is needed. I know that.
It is. It is.
Positive points, man.
It is. And
So
so
who else
next, well, who else we have up here? We have retired Chief of Police of Durham, Steve Chalmers. And so I'm going to let him do the rest. Can you please let us tell us, I mean, there's so many goodies with you, Steve, so you have to do this because I just can't.
Okay, hello, Cynthia. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
All right, and greetings to all.
Welcome.
Again, my name is Steve Chalmers. I'm a Durham native, born and raised in the Bull City, and graduate of Hillside High School, North Carolina A&T State University. And upon graduating, I spent the next 32 and a half years with the Durham Police Department. And basically during that time, my focus and the majority of the assignments I had involved working in community and developing community programs. Rose to the rank of Chief of Police, where I served my last 5.5 years in that capacity. I grew up on the south side of Durham, at that what they call South Side now, but it used to be called the Bottom when I was a kid growing up. And one of the things that I remember most about growing up in that community is we had strong male role models, strong men, that regardless of how tough a kid felt that he was, he realized that he had men in the community that were a lot stronger, and they were well respected, and they provided the discipline. Even though every household did not have a man in it, if one household had one, basically everybody had a father. And that was just a way of life for us, the way we grew up. And so that kind of attracted me to a lot of organizations, because one of the things that we realized, and I realized early on, is that as communities, we started to look different. A lot of our folks started to move outside of the inner city where most of us grew up. We weren't right all the time right next door to people that looked like us, but at the same time, we were still experiencing the same kind of problems. So one of the things that we realized is that we had to go back into these communities that were having the difficulties, and we had to bring back that old village concept. One of the first programs that I joined was the 100 Black Men of America. And one of their mottos is, what they see is what they'll be. And I think that is a very, very powerful statement, because we have to ask ourselves, when we start to look at the problems that we're having in our communities, exactly what are our kids seeing? And what are the influences in those communities? And we realize that we cannot continue to pass judgment and point fingers when we are not actually stepping up and doing the things that we need to do. You know, back we used to had a motto in crime prevention that if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. So one of the things that we have to make certain that we are doing is making certain that we are being a part of the solution. Now, while I was serving as police chief and a member of the 100 Black Men of America, we decided that we wanted to start a Durham-specific program. And we called that program Men of Vision. We started that program November the 6th in 2004, where we brought 75 African-American men together from all walks of life to come together to commit that we will go out and we will support our young men of color and their families. And we set up our programs based on several different programs. We had a mentoring program. We concentrated on economic development, health and wellness. We also concentrated on recreation and education. Mainly reason we did this was because we knew we needed something comprehensive. And at the same time, we realized that when we look at crime and disorder and the pathway to destruction that our kids were heading towards, these were some of the deficiencies in their lives. And as we start to look at really what's going on across America right now as it relates to the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's going on between law enforcement and the community, one of the things that we realized is that when you start to look at complaints of over-policing, when you start to look at all the different things that are going on, we have to know that systematically, even since slavery, our communities have been kind of bootstrapped and held in the same kind of positions to kind of keep them subservient and in a position where they are just basically looking at what can they do to survive. So one of the things we know, we got a lot of systems that need to be fixed. A lot of the focus right now is on law enforcement, and I'll be the first one to say there's a lot of work that needs to be done with law enforcement, not just restructuring and reformation, but you know, one of the things we have to look at is that we've got to move in a totally different direction and make certain that justice has blinders on like it's supposed to.
Right.
But at the same time, what we need to look at is that we need to make certain that our elected officials are actually investing in people, and the people basically who are in need of all of these types of services. We've seen them put a lot of money in different communities. We've seen money going into Northeast Central Durham in our community. We've seen money going onto the South Side. and they've done a lot of improvement. But basically, the only thing that I have seen here as of late that they did was set those communities up for gentrification. So what are we doing? What happened to the people? They invested in the community, they invested in the physical and infrastructure types of things, but the people in those communities have actually moved out or been pushed out because they can't afford it any longer. And the biggest problem we are having is that they build nice apartment buildings and different things like that, but when you continue to push the same people who are basically barely making it, to me that equates only to warehousing. And I think that's one of the things that we have to realize, and we as people need to come together to make certain that when it comes to reformation, we're not just reforming law enforcement, that we're going to have to reform the way services are being delivered and making certain that the need for law enforcement are not with our people or people of color all the time. So that's one of the programs we're working with. I've been working in McDougall Terrace since we've had the COVID breakout. We've pretty much been limited to the work that we could do down there because of exposure. But we've been working down there with mostly with the kids. We have a teen program in that community. We've taken them on field trips. We provided toys for a couple of years, and I think Cynthia and Achille for the support they gave us last Christmas, where we actually went into the community, took a busload of toys, and provided for the kids. I'm also working with another program called the D.L. Forbes Foundation, Leadership Foundation. That program started about 2 years before mine. It was started by Reverend Winslow T. Forbes. He's now retired from the Durham Police Department, also as an associate chief. He started this program, and it's a paramilitary faith-based program, and they've graduated probably over 250 cadets from this program over the years. And if you want to find out more about this program, go to the dl4yf.org, and you can see the kids, and we are posting some testimonials from one of the parents we did one Sunday, and she talked about how it transformed her son from a kid who got in trouble in school, a follower, to a leader who received a scholarship to Appalachian State and is doing excellent right now. So these are the kind of programs, and what we're trying to do now is start a campaign to move towards a residential academy. Because some of the times what we need to do is get our kids out of the community and just keep them. And putting them on a campus or putting them in a residential program will make a difference. What the Forbes Foundation does, and what we've had done for years, is that when the kids got out of school for the summer, they went into the woods in tents, and they stayed 40 days and 40 nights. And when they came back, the parents didn't recognize them.
It was some different men. Huh?
That was, I mean, it made a difference. They came in screaming and yelling. They didn't want to be there, and they were the most disciplined, well-behaved kids at the end of that 40 days. And these are the kind of things that can happen, but we need consistency and we need commitment. So that's one of the things that we're looking at right now, is just trying to see what we could do to get a residential academy set up somewhere, and we got some possibilities on that, but we're going to need the community to come in and help us. So I'm going to stop there, and then if you guys got some questions, or if there some other things, but those are two of the programs that I'm working. I'm on the board of directors for the Forbes Foundation, a president of Men of Vision, and quickly I work with a third program called UN50, and basically what we do, we go all over basically it's really all over North Carolina. We go up to A&T, we go to a lot of different places within this city, and we teach people how to respond to law enforcement encounters. And this program was started by BJ Council, and she's a retired deputy chief from the Durham Police Department. So we got some chiefs that are coming out of there from the police department. When they retire, they don't go home and sit down. They go back into the community, and we go out there and we try to make a difference.
That's what these young men need, because after like 16 years old, it's really nothing else for them to get into, like far as sports and community things. So after 16, we really need some type of programs for them kids.
Right.
We thank Corey Booker, definitely. And I wanted to ask you a question about, you know, what's going on, you know, the law enforcement and the killings of the people. How did you control that in your time being in Durham as a chief for 5 years or whatever it was? How did you control that situation? Because Durham is not so bad as killing people. I mean, cops killing people. I'm not that I've noticed.
Well, you know, one of the things I think that it was different, and I think being a native son and born and raised in this community and knowing people about all over town was one of the things that made a difference.
That helped.
And it made me more committed to this community because this is home and has always been home. The other thing, as I said earlier, you know, I concentrated on community policing programs almost my entire career. So when I became chief, everybody in the organization knew what my philosophy was. And if there was some who were in doubt, one of the things that I did was basically develop my philosophy for the department, and basically I pushed it from the top to the bottom. So basically, if an officer in my organization would go out into community, and when he was asked a question, his response would be what my response would have been. Because basically I sent my messages down right to the officers. I also stressed on community policing. I had officers working in every community in the city of Durham, not basically for law enforcement, but as problem solvers. I had an officer in every public housing community. I had them all over in every district, and that was their job. And their responsibility was to go out and solve problems, not lock folk up. And I actually was one, before I became chief of police, I was a part of the group of folk that started Partners Against Crime in Durham, which basically empowers community to basically to tell law enforcement, tell government what it is that they want and how they want it done. So the thing what you have to understand, and the thing that I accepted as a police chief, is that we work for the community. They are the bosses.
Absolutely.
And you're going to have to listen to them and let them tell you what it is that they want their city to look like. And you basically develop programs and activities to actually give them what they want. And again, the thing of it is that you got to have relationship. You got to have trust.
That's key.
I used to actually use 3 words: communication, understanding, and trust. In order to trust someone, you got to understand them. In order to understand them, you have to talk to them. So it starts with communication. You got to have good, strong communication. So you have to put yourself in a position or in an environment where you're sitting down talking with folks. Even if you walk in and there is distrust, if you talk with people long enough, they're going to understand you. They may not agree with you all the time, but they're going to understand you. And if they understand you, eventually they're going to give you their trust. But you have to start with the communication piece. So pretty much that was my philosophy. Now, keeping in mind and understand, I had strong enforcement programs because that was part of my job, was to make certain the community was safe. But at the same time, we offered people options. You know, I was a detective for 7 years, and one of the detectives that trained me, when he walked into a room to interview a person about whether or not they committed a crime or something that they had been accused of, he's always started with one statement: I can be your best friend or your worst enemy. It's up to you what role I play. And that's what we have to do. We have to let folks know, look, we're here to help you, and we can be your best friend. And if you allow us to be that, then we're going to work with you. But, you know, if you slap one cheek and I turn and you slap the other one, you know, I don't have anywhere to go. Right. So, and I think that's what we have to do. But communication, I think, is vital.
And Steve, you have so much going on in the community, and you're raising a lot of good points, which I want to make sure I bring in Councilman Corey Branch. But before I do, I wanted to bring on Duffel Chase, who is a rap artist. And the thing about Duffel, but yeah, so basically, you know, Duffel is the person, the type of, you know, he's an artist, I know we all deal with music in our ways, but we're talking to a hip hop artist who's an independent artist, which means that he is not, he hasn't yet received his Grammy. But what we're doing is he's right here, right now with us. He's at the Food Lion. He's the one that's seeing, like he said, the young guys who are inspiring him. He's the one that, the people who, need this mental health advice, Akili, he's the one that is, using his voice to reach these people. And so in conjunction with someone like, Duffel Chase, this is the type of reason why we have such a smorgasbord of African-American men of power on the podcast tonight, because everybody who's been speaking so far, I hear all kinds of connections. I hear all kinds of resources. I hear, a nice network of people right here that are obviously business-minded.
First of all, happy Father's Day to every father out there. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll find myself a 5-year-old daughter. Her name Essence. That's why my music, I scream out, Esquerra.
All right.
That's good. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I'm an artist. And I really started focusing. I've been rapping for a little minute, but I started focusing after my mom passed almost 2 years ago. And one thing she always told me was, God gave you a gift. Somebody want to hear it. So when she passed, it's I really been going hard with it. And I can't lie, once she passed, a lot of things changed. A lot of people listen. Everywhere I went, I done been all over. I done toured in Cali, New York, Baltimore, Charlotte, all over North Carolina. I've been in a lot of places doing my music, and it's everybody say the same thing, you got something. People want to hear it. So what I try to do, I just talk about what I've been through, what I've seen, what I know people that have been through. You know what I mean? That's the only thing I can talk about. And my goal is to touch one person. I got a song named Mama. I made it for my mother when they called me in California and they told me my mother had 24 hours. She wasn't going to make it through the night. I was in California. My mother was in New York. And I went to the studio. I booked my flight. My flight was in a couple hours. I went to the studio. I recorded a song. It's called Mama. And I played that song to a couple grown men. I'm talking about grown men. Thugs, preachers. And I made a couple grown men cry because, I only could talk about what I've been through.
Right.
I know somebody I know been through. I can't talk about what I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know. One thing I do know about, what the police commissioner said, he doing a lot. And I ain't gonna lie, my experience with police, I can't say that I've seen that. But he look like when he talking, it sound like all honesty. So I commend you and I respect that. You know what I'm saying? Because right now we need people like me, artists, people like you, people like Ben, people like the other dude. I forgot his name. I'm not good with names. I mean, people like Cynthia, people like us to come together and from all walks of life and try to change. The only way things are gonna work is if everybody come together and change. I can't change it by myself. I'm gonna do my part. Everybody got to do their part.
Absolutely.
So, moving right along, Duffel, thank you so much for sharing. In all honesty, exactly too. Everybody has to do their part, and so from Akili to Key to Chief over there to Duffel, we want to bring definitely last but not least, Councilman Corey Branch with Raleigh City District C. Everybody, please welcome Councilman Corey Branch.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I'm sitting here and listening, and it's funny how some of us, we actually have connections in weird ways. Chief, you know my uncle very well, Jesse Burwell. He worked with you for many years. He didn't want to help keep the finances in the Durham Police Department online. I graduated from A&T in 2000, so connected to Greensboro. I'm a Raleigh native, Kill, you probably know Wayne Wooten. He cuts my hair out of Wooten's. So it's weird how we have our connection. But being a Raleigh native and serving in the district that I was born and raised in, it comes with its challenges. We're in this stage now in just life that, we're fighting battles that predate my birth. I'm 42 years old. I have a daughter who'll be 2 in September. We're dealing with housing issues that predate me. We're dealing with discrimination that predated me, and systems, and trying to change those systems. We just had a city council meeting yesterday, and we amended a policy for excessive water use that dated back to 1986.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things that governments are doing on out-of-date policies. What it's going to take is the community working with elected officials. I just left the meeting here today, before I got here today with some guys. You know, we got to talk about, you know, truly ownership, and not just, you know, materials, but land. You know, when you own the land, you can control what happens. You can control, you know, policies as far as, you know, zoning and development. And then we talk about, you know, gentrification. Any area that has a high number of renters is prime for gentrification. Because what happens is you have families that have lived in the area 20, 30, 40 years, and everyone thinks, oh, they're good, they live there. They've rented for 20, 30 years. The person that they were working with passed. The heirs take over the home. They don't want to be landlords. So what do? They sell it. Now the people who are in that house, they're gone. You know, they have to relocate. So these are some of the things that have caused challenges. Some of the policies that government has set up, you know, in trying to revitalize, have had unintended consequences to people that have been there for years. Because sometimes we've been more consumers than owners. And I think that's the part we have to really change. And like I said, the meeting I just left, when I was rushing here, I called Cent because I was like, hey, I'm running late. My meeting ran over. But the conversation was about ownership. How do we get a part of it? And, you know, being the only African-American on city council in Raleigh, Raleigh has always only had just one African-American at a time. In the city, there's 29% African-American. Yeah, we've never had more than one at a time. Those are things that when we talk about getting involved in elections, off-year elections matter. Our elections are in odd years, and they're every 2 years. We may change it every 4. We don't know yet. But right now, they're every 2 years. So the next one is in 21. Well, once everyone comes off of this high in November for the presidential and Congress and everything else, no one's going to be paying attention till like August, and our elections in October, and others are in November. We got to play that part. So what I've been doing is trying to educate. I'm married to a teacher, so that helps me stay connected there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an engineer by trade. My degree is in engineering. I have a full-time. I tell people I have 2 full-time jobs, really 3. One, I'm a father and a husband. So that's one. I work with AT&T, and I'm on city council. Of those 3 jobs, only one pays, and that's AT&T.
Right.
So when we talk about economics in our community, that's another challenge that we have, and making sure that we have access to those opportunities. So my job is to try to do everything I can to open the doors. But this is where when someone asks me, well, what can the community do? One, partner, but prepare. Prepare. You have to prepare. And I'm still, and Chief Chalmers, I'm a member of the 100 Triangle East now. And they're still working and mentoring and pushing the envelope. So that's what it's going to take. And again, to all the fathers, happy Father's Day. I could go on, but, you know, I'm going to try to be respectful some of the time. And I'm not retired. So, you know, I don't have that long history either.
But you know what, Councilman Corey, you said something really key, and this is something that we could probably close out the podcast for tonight. You know, again, thank you to everyone from me and even to my own dad. But going back to the podcast, you said something that I think all of us can kind of put in our own little input at times. And, you know, I was looking at the Rayshard Brooks story,
Mhm.
and it was one of the committing these crimes of injustices against our African American men. It's not their first time. It's not their first time that they have had disciplinary actions, and it's almost as if they've received slaps on the wrist or reassigned or somehow, you know, I know if I'm someone at McDonald's, if they burn the fries or come in late too many times, they're fired. But the police officer can shoot someone of a different color or kill people. You know, I mean, I have facts here and names, but
Right.
the point of the story is there are multiple stories that are even popping up now from things that we know that have been done, and disciplinary actions just don't seem to measure up. So going back to the elections and the 2-year elections, is that how we can change how those disciplinary actions are handled towards officers? Or, you know, or maybe Chief, you know, you have your, I don't know, like maybe
So-
that's, yeah.
So I'm going to give my spiel, and I think the chief can probably go a little deeper. But in North Carolina, we have a council manager form of government. So that means the city council sets policy. The city manager runs the day-to-day activities. Your police chief is hired by your city manager. Your city council can only hire and fire 3 people. That's the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk. Everyone else reports to one of them, and majority of them report through the city manager. Because of personnel laws, as a council, we can't even see personnel files from any employee, including police. So when it comes down to disciplinary actions, the key is your chief and the environment that your chief sets and lays down. But also, Raleigh is interesting. We actually have a civil service board. What that is, it's a group of citizens. The council, we only appoint really 2 people. One is selected by employees, and then there's other ways they build up the civil service board. But any disciplinary action that a city employee faces from their director or from police, from the chief, they can appeal it to the civil service board. And depending on what comes out of the civil service board, it can either be held up, or, you know, they can substantiate what the chief decided to do. They could overturn it. But what comes out of that can then, if it needs to be appealed, it goes directly to district court.
Gotcha.
So that's how Raleigh is set up, and that plays a factor in our disciplinary actions. But a lot of it comes down to any police issue in which there's a death, the SBI investigates for Raleigh. So if an officer's involved in the shooting and someone is deceased, the SBI investigates, and that goes to the Wake County DA. So they handle all the criminal parts of that. And then once the Wake County DA is done, whatever they decide is not until then, at that time, there can be an administrative review of what happens. And so that's a high level version of what happens specifically in Raleigh. And that's one thing I keep saying in Raleigh. Every municipality kind of handles things a little differently, and every state definitely handles things differently. So those are some of the things to keep in mind. The police in Raleigh don't go through the same, actually they go through almost 1,200 hours of training, which is double what's required. But the hours of training we have for Raleigh PD is not the same for Wake County. It's not the same for state troopers. It's not the same for Cary, Morrisville. They all have their all different training. And what happens to us is we lose officers actually to other municipalities. We train them, they go through our training, get everything, and then someone else hires them. So that's my little spiel.
Gotcha.
And I think the chief could probably say a little more.
And Chief, before you get going, I just want everybody to know now, when I was, like I told him the other day, I was Googling Chief, right? And I'm seeing across, you know, the social media platforms, and if there's anybody that have to jump off, I totally understand. But Chief, you were actually given a lot of praises as being when you were in office from 2003, I think, to 2007, if I'm not mistaken, as the chief there, that the crime rates actually decreased.
Well, you know, again, that's one of the things I actually was criticized quite a bit during my tenure.
And can you give us a little volume if you don't mind? I want to make sure we hear that.
Okay, let me see here. I thought I had it all the way up. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's better.
Okay. And see, that was one of the things, and I think that's what Corey is talking about, is the fact that, again, each city does things different. I can remember one of the breakfasts that we had in Durham. I was criticized openly because I allocated my personnel different than Raleigh, and that Raleigh had more officers actually on the streets patrolling, and I had more officers on foot walking in communities talking to people. I was criticized for having too many soft programs. But again, as we know, locking folk up really does not actually bring about long-term permanent changes. And the thing what you have to look at is basically, you have to examine your community, and you have to determine what's the best types of programs and the best way to actually provide law enforcement services to that community. I felt that we could get more bang for the buck if I had people out there helping to solve problems, more so than riding around in cars and responding to 911 calls. And I think that one of the things that you will find is that a lot of my programs went away once I left, but now that Chief Davis is in, a lot of those programs are coming back.
Oh, good.
Because basically we share the same philosophy about policing. And I did not fold to the criticisms or the demand to put more officers out. I held my place because I felt that we knew better how to police. And again, you're seeing now that officers are going back into public housing communities, and some of those programs are coming back, and I think it's going to make a difference long term. So, but that's one of the things that, you know, I would attribute reducing crime. Again, is not riding around jumping out of cars.
Yeah.
It's basically walking in communities, talking to people, and gaining that trust. Because if you get in the community and you gain the trust of the people that live in the community, they're going to help keep it safe. The reason a lot of times they don't help you out is because they don't trust you, and a lot of times they feel that, you know, if they gotta basically choose between two evils, they're gonna choose the drug dealers and the people that are creating havoc in the community, because if they don't, you know, they mind their business, they're gonna leave them alone. But if they don't trust you and they don't believe that you're gonna come in and help them to get rid of some of the problems, you know, they're not gonna talk with you.
And Steve, just one thing too, when we were there for the toy drive at McDougal Terrace, by the way, BIM was one of our major sponsors with I Got Drinks. He was working there in Durham, right there where we were. So it was a really, really nice event that we did. But even standing there in McDougal, it was my first time. We actually did the toy drive right before the problem happened with the toxic fumes where they had to move out of there. And I can't think right now, but you know, Steve, it was weird. I'm not even gonna lie. It was weird standing in that big room full of toys and seeing all of these officers with all of their, you know, uniforms and stuff. And I mean, the response of the babies all the way to the older people and, you know, even the teenagers. Like, I mean, these teenagers over at McDougal was walking up to white officers and giving them hugs and daps, and the officers are tossing juice across the room and taking selfies. Like, I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready. I just wasn't.
Engaging with the community. That's what they need to do.
I was looking around like, what, you know, I wasn't ready. But Steve, you could just see the relationship and love and care, like Duffel said, the sincerity of you being in the streets, it exuded across the room because that power and that energy just really, it was just conveyed throughout the room. It wasn't phony. The police were there. They really meant those hugs. You could tell it. They were holding babies, and the babies obviously knew them. You know, it was just amazing.
Yes, I mean that's one of the things I think has made a difference since Chief Davis has come back in and she started to put those officers back in the communities, because what they've done, they've gotten into McDougald Terrace, they walk around, they talk with the people. We took over 50 kids and parents to Atlanta, Georgia. The Durham Police Department and the Durham County Sheriff deputies went with us. One of them drove a sheriff's car, an unmarked car, all the way to Atlanta, Georgia, and officers rode in the bus. And we took them to the state fair. We rode in the police department and the sheriff department buses. So again, when you basically start to make yourself a part of the community, it makes a difference.
And see, those are the kids that's going to become cops and do it the right way.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. That's one of the things that Forrest Foundation is doing, is just we're focusing on law enforcement as well as military service, and we start to basically work with these kids when they start around 12 years old, and to get them to understand exactly what community is all about. They have to do volunteer work, and we talk to them about policing and so forth. We got about 4 retired chiefs working with them right now, as well as some current officers. But they stuck, you know, and they develop those relationships, because one of the things, and we talked about it earlier, is that, and really what Corey was talking about, how, because Durham has the same problem. We train officers well, but we lose them. But what we're trying to, and what we need to do is really get back to getting officers from the community.
There's so much here to discuss today, guys, and we just don't have even enough time. You know, we have to do this again at some point. But, you know, it's just so many good topics. Everyone who's been watching and joining us, please make sure to, you know, get with Steve Chalmers. Make sure to link up with Corey Branch. Even Duffel's out there, Key. We got a Keely and Bem. And so, you know, we want to just make sure, you know, to all of the African-American men and women alike who are trying to understand how can we do our part. We don't want to necessarily go out and riot and vandalize things, but we're trying to be heard. And so obviously these are people in our community. They look like us. They're already, you know, proving their track record. So we can definitely reach out to them. We have their information, their contact information. And so thank you all so much for everything. I don't want to cut us short. If y'all have any questions, though, go ahead. But I definitely just wanted to let you guys know that we have to do a part 2 or something, because this thing is just too good.
and I know you want to go. I just want to mention.
Right before Father's Day, too. This was huge. Thank you, guys. Happy Father's Day to all of you.
Happy Father's Day.
And Corey, was there something you were trying to say?
Yeah, there's one more thing I want to mention. In Raleigh and Durham, we have boards and commissions that elected officials appoint people to. Go out there, go to the websites, look at these boards and commissions. Those are ways to get involved, because there's things that come to city council that these boards and commissions deal with before they come to city council. Planning, parks, zoning. All of that comes before a board of appointed citizens before they come to city council. And that's the way to be involved and know what's going on.
Amazing.
Got you.
So now we're going to go.
I want to give y'all the sip of the weekend.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Today's sip of the weekend for the cognac drink, right? We got, it's called the sampler. We got 1 part Douce. There's not much left. I done killed my bottle. Then we got orange juice. 1 part orange juice and a little simple syrup, you guys. Try that for your Father's Day Douce sip of the week. If you're a cognac drinker, you'll like it. Trust me. That's the sip of the week.
Absolutely. And the also has a special Father's Day blend, which is the new fashion cocktail. And so, Bim, I was looking at that one. And so, you know, I want you to try that one out for me and let me know how that one is, too. Some of you fathers out there.
You know I will.
Can I say one thing before we get on?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Keely.
It's kind of like toward Mr. Chalmers. So I'm a videographer also. That's something I do, you know what I'm saying? I get paid, and sometimes I just do projects for, you know, just for fun. But I also wanted to do a project, and I haven't found somebody to do it with, where I want to educate the public on their rights when it comes to dealing with police. And everybody I've reached out to kind of give me the runaround. Even lawyers, like it's like everybody's scared to say what's right and what's wrong. And it kind of scares me because if I'm dealing with a police officer and I'm not educated on what he can do and what he can't do, then I can be mistreated. So I was trying to create something that sets guidelines. Like, when is it too far? When is this officer went too far? When is it a situation to complain? Who do I complain to? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of these things, us as blacks, we don't know. When it comes to the police, we look at the police, to be honest, in the negative light. So it ain't like we're going to actually go and have a conversation with these people because we look at them like, okay, they coming this way, let me look that way. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to try to get with somebody that could educate me or that was open to be on camera and explain, okay, if you're getting stopped, your rights is to this, that, and the third. Yeah. If you know what I'm saying? Like, I just wanted it broke down in a simple form to give the public. Because I feel like if we educate people, then you can kind of take the fear factor out. Because then somebody can be like, you know what, sir, you're not able to do that, and that's my right, and can you contact your supervisor or this, that, you know what I'm saying? We don't even know any of this stuff. So if you know somebody that you can link me with or something like that, I would really like to create that and put it out for the public for their benefit and their safety.
Okay. I'll keep my eyes and ears open for that. Definitely, bro. Definitely.
All right, we got you covered on that. We can handle that.
There you go. That's it right there. The chief said we can handle that.
He said he got him covered.
It's the platform. That's what you do. Connect, networking, baby. There you go.
Absolutely. So, well, if everyone, if you have any more questions for each other, we all have everybody's information for reaching out. Thank you all once again for having this Father's Day show with Bim and I, the North Carolina Duce ambassadors, on our Duce La Familia, Sip and Chill North Carolina podcast. And so make sure, everyone, that you are subscribing to our YouTube channel. Bim Bimmer is actually getting some goodies together for a few giveaways for people that subscribe to us. We'll be entering you in to win some of our Duce paraphernalia, some of our marketing and merch. And so, all right, look at those. That's just, I want like 500 of those. Like, just to, I don't know. I don't know. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?
It's not like you're going to use them.
I don't know.
He said, not like you're going to use them.
Some great juice in it. But everybody, thank you all so much. Bim Bimmer, as always, being your co-host, has been wonderful. Happy Father's Day to you, especially being the father of our Duce podcast right here. All of the dads right here on the podcast with me. Thank y'all so much. And even to our fathers who may not be with us no more, rest in heaven, and happy Father's Day to them. Key, thank God your baby is here. You deserve a very blessed Father's Day. Give that boy kisses. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so y'all be blessed, and Duce sippers, please subscribe and check us again on next Friday on the Duce La Familia.
Oh, mama, I love you. Well, what up, brother? It's your favorite engineer, you heard? We're from the zoo. Look, I'm from the zoo. My team full of animals. I tell them to eat people. Yeah, I'm raising cannibals. You know what I do know? I would dismantle you. Cause I'm from the zoo too. And I'm an animal. Yuck, I'm from the zoo. My team full of animals. I tell them to eat.